I stared at my phone, reading the message for the 100th time. The words hadn't changed. I'm sorry you had to find out this way, but your husband's been seeing someone for months. I thought you should know. My name is Sasha, and this was how my perfect life began to unravel. I confronted Stefan that evening, my hands shaking as I held up my phone. Is there something you want to tell me? He glanced at the screen, and I watched his face transform from confusion to recognition to calculated calm. Baby, it's not what you think. Don't, my voice cracked. Just don't. I have proof, Stefan. Pictures, messages, everything. He sat down heavily on our leather couch, the one we'd picked out together last spring. Look, things haven't been great between us lately. You're always working late, focused on your startup ideas. I called my mom immediately after he left, expecting comfort, support, anything. Instead, her response felt like a second betrayal. Well, honey, what did you expect? Men have needs. Maybe if you'd been more attentive. More attentive? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Mom, he cheated on me. These things don't happen in a vacuum, Sasha. You've been so wrapped up in your career lately. Stefan's such a good man. He provides for you. He's charming. I hung up. My best friend Margaret arrived within 30 minutes, armed with wine and fierce loyalty. Your mother said what? She paced my living room fuming. That's absolutely insane. It gets worse, I said, taking a long sip of wine. My dad called. He thinks I should work it out with Stefan. Apparently I'm being hasty and emotional. Of course you're emotional. Your husband cheated on you. The doorbell rang. It was my sister Jolie, looking concerned but distant. Mom sent me to talk some sense into you. Sense? I laughed bitterly. You mean convince me to stay with a cheater? He made a mistake, Sasha, but you're not exactly innocent here. When was the last time you made him feel appreciated? When was the last time you put your marriage before your career? I stood up, my wine glass trembling in my hand. Get out! Sasha, get out! The glass shattered against the wall, red wine streaming down like blood. All of you, my whole family, you're defending him? After what he did to me? Margaret stepped between us. I think you should leave, Jolie. After she left, I collapsed onto the floor, surrounded by broken glass and spilled wine. They're all taking his side, my own family. Then they don't deserve you, Margaret said firmly, kneeling beside me. Listen to me, Sasha. You're brilliant, strong, and capable. If they can't see that, it's their loss. The next week was a blur of lawyers, mediation attempts, and more betrayals. My family staged an intervention, all of them gathered in my parents' living room like I was some wayward teenager. Stefan's willing to work through this, my mother said, hope bright in her eyes. He loves you, sweetie. He's sorry, my father added. Everyone makes mistakes. I looked at their earnest faces, my mother, my father, my sister, all convinced they knew what was best for me, all choosing him over me. Something inside me hardened, turned to steel. I'm done, I said quietly. What do you mean, done? Jolie asked. I stood up, straightening my spine. I mean, I'm done with all of you. You want Stefan so badly? Keep him, but you lose me in the process. Don't be dramatic, my mother scoffed. I'm not being dramatic. I'm being clear. From this moment on, don't call me, don't text me, don't try to contact me. We're finished. You can't mean that, my father said, finally looking worried. We're your family. No, I replied, walking to the door. Family doesn't do this to each other. Family stands by you when you're hurt. Family protects you. You're just people who share my DNA. I walked out of that house with nothing but my purse and my dignity. Behind me, I could hear my mother calling my name, my father's heavy sigh, Jolie's frustrated grunt. I didn't look back. In my car, I called Margaret. I did it. I cut them off. Are you okay? I started the engine, watching my childhood home grow smaller in the rearview mirror. No, but I will be. They think I'm nothing without Stefan? They think I'm the failure here? Just watch me prove them wrong. I pulled onto the main road, my hands steady on the wheel for the first time in days. Sometimes the end of everything is really just the beginning. And this was my beginning. my chance to show them all exactly what I was capable of. 3 months after walking out on my family, I sat across from a potential investor in a sleek downtown coffee shop, trying not to show how desperately I needed this meeting to go well. Your business plan is solid, Fabian said, studying the document spread between us. But why come to me? There are bigger firms that would jump at this. I took a careful sip of my coffee. Because you have a reputation for backing underdogs, and right now that's exactly what I am. He leaned back, dark eyes studying me intently. Tell me the truth. Why start this now? Your resume shows you were in corporate marketing for years. What changed? Everything changed, I admitted. I lost my marriage, my family, my support system. But I gained clarity. This business idea? It's been in my head for years. I just needed the push to actually do it. Margaret, who'd insisted on coming for moral support, chimed in from beside me. She's been developing this concept for ages. I've watched her refine it, perfect it. Fabian nodded slowly. A digital marketing agency specifically for small businesses priced out of traditional agencies. It's not revolutionary, but your approach is unique. He tapped the business plan. And your pricing structure could disrupt the market. So? I held my breath. So, I'm in. But I want 30% equity and an active role in operations. Margaret squeezed my hand under the table as I replied, 25%, and you can have your active role. He grinned. Done. Welcome to entrepreneurship, Sasha. The next few months were a blur of 18-hour days, endless coffee, and the kind of exhaustion that seeps into your bones. But slowly, surely, we began to build something real. Another client signed, I announced, bursting into our small office space one morning. That makes 10 this month. Fabian looked up from his computer, smiling. The Miller account? They've been on the fence for weeks. Not anymore. I showed them our results from the Thompson campaign, and they were sold. This calls for a celebration, Margaret declared, spinning in her chair. She'd joined us as our PR director last month. Drinks after work? Later that evening, at our favorite bar, Fabian raised his glass. To Sasha, who turned a setback into a comeback. To Karma, Margaret added with a wink. I froze mid-sip. What do you mean? Oh, I ran into Jolie at the grocery store yesterday. Apparently, Stefan's new business venture isn't going so well. Something about investment problems? My stomach twisted. I don't want to know. Yes, you do, Margaret insisted. He's been hitting up your parents for money. They're considering remortgaging their house to help him. That's not my problem anymore, I said firmly, but Fabian was watching me carefully. It bothers you, though, he observed. Of course it does. They're being idiots, but they're still my... I stopped myself. They made their choice. Speaking of choices, Margaret interjected, pulling out her phone. Look who just viewed your LinkedIn profile. I glanced at the screen and nearly choked on my drink. Stefan's face stared back at me, his profile showing he'd viewed mine multiple times in the past week. Curious about your success? Fabian asked. More likely looking for investors, I muttered. He always did have a talent for spotting opportunity. You've come a long way, Margaret said softly. Remember that first week after everything happened? You were sleeping on my couch, barely eating. And now? I gestured around us. Now I have a thriving business, amazing partners, and actual freedom. I wouldn't go back if you paid me. Fabian raised an eyebrow. Even if they apologized? They won't, I said confidently. They're too proud. Besides, I don't need their approval anymore. Look at these numbers. I pulled up our monthly revenue report on my phone. We're doing better than I ever dreamed. To independence, Margaret toasted. To new beginnings, Fabian added. I clinked my glass against theirs, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the alcohol. This was what success felt like, not just the numbers in our bank account, but the knowledge that I'd built something meaningful from the ashes of my old life. My phone buzzed with a text. Unknown number, but I recognized my mother's writing style immediately. Your father and I need to talk to you. It's important. Please call us. I showed the message to Margaret, who scowled. Delete it. Instead, I typed out a response. New phone. Who's this? and hit send. Petty, Fabian commented with a smile. I like it. I put my phone away, refusing to let them intrude on this moment. Let them worry about Stefan and his schemes. I had an empire to build, and I was just getting started. So, I said, pulling out my tablet, wait until you see our projections for next quarter. 1 year into running my business, I was reviewing quarterly reports when Margaret burst into my office, face flushed with urgency. You need to see this, she said, thrusting her phone at me. It showed a local news article. Local entrepreneur under investigation for investment fraud. My stomach dropped as I saw Stefan's photo beneath the headline. That's not all, Margaret continued. Scroll down. I read further, my eyes widening. Stefan had apparently been running a sophisticated investment scheme, targeting older couples with retirement savings. The victims' names weren't listed, but I had a sinking feeling I knew who some of them might be. My phone rang. Unknown number again. Sasha? My mother's voice was thick with tears. Please don't hang up. I put the phone on speaker, gesturing for Margaret to stay. What do you want? We need your help. Your father... We're going to lose the house. Stefan... Stop. I cut her off. Let me guess. You invested with him? He had such a good plan, she whispered. He showed us the projections, the testimonials from other investors. We thought we could double our retirement savings. Margaret mouthed, idiots, from across the desk. I couldn't disagree. How much? I asked. Everything, her voice cracked. Our savings, the house equity. He said it was guaranteed returns. Nothing's guaranteed, Mom. That's literally the first rule of investing. Please, she begged. We need $200,000 to keep the house. We can pay you back. I laughed bitterly. With what? You just said you lost everything. We're your parents, Sasha. Really? Because when I needed parents, you chose Stefan. When I needed support, you blamed me. When I needed family, you turned your backs. My voice was steady, even as my hands shook. Funny how I'm suddenly your daughter again when you need money. The door opened and Fabian walked in, raising an eyebrow at my expression. I waved him in. Sasha, please, my mother continued. Your father can't sleep. Jolie tried to help, but she's struggling too. We don't know what to do. I'll tell you what to do, I said coldly. Contact the authorities, file a police report, get a lawyer, but don't call me again. I hung up, dropping my head into my hands. Your ex? Fabian asked, setting a coffee on my desk. Apparently he scammed my entire family, I said. They invested everything with him. Karma's a witch, Margaret said, but her expression was concerned. Are you okay? I'm fine. They made their bed. I straightened up, reaching for the coffee. Let's focus on work. How's the Taylor account looking? But Fabian wasn't letting it go. You should look into what he's doing. If he scammed your family, he's probably scammed others. Not my problem. No, he agreed. But it could be an opportunity. I looked up sharply. What do you mean? Think about it. Your company specializes in digital marketing for small businesses. What if we offered free services to help his victims rebuild? The publicity would be incredible, and it would drive Stefan crazy, Margaret finished, grinning. Brilliant. My phone buzzed again, a text from Jolie. Mom's a mess. Dad's talking about bankruptcy. Please help us. Another message followed. I'm sorry for everything. You were right about him. Too little. Too late, I muttered, showing the messages to Margaret. Your sister reaching out too? Fabian asked. They must be desperate. Good, I said, but something in my chest tightened. They deserve this. They do, Margaret agreed. But maybe Fabian's right. Maybe there's a way to help his other victims while making your family realize exactly what they lost when they chose him over you. I pulled up Stefan's company website on my computer. Look at this. He's still actively recruiting investors. There's an event next week. We should go, Fabian suggested. Gather intelligence. Are you crazy? He'll recognize me immediately. Not if we do it right, Margaret said, excitement building in her voice. I have a friend who does amazing makeovers. He'll never know it's you. I stared at Stefan's smiling face on the website, remembering how that same smile had convinced my family to turn against me. Now it was apparently convincing others to hand over their life savings. Fine, I said finally. But we do this my way. No confrontations, no scenes. We gather information and we help his victims. But my family? They can figure their own way out of this mess. Agreed, Fabian said, pulling out his phone. I'll start making calls. As they left my office, I looked at Jolie's messages again. I'm sorry for everything, I read aloud, tasting the bitterness of those words. Sorry wasn't going to fix this, but maybe, just maybe, I could prevent others from making the same mistake my family did. I barely recognized myself in the hotel bathroom mirror. Margaret's friend had worked magic. My usually straight dark hair was now a wavy blonde. Colored contacts changed my brown eyes to blue, and subtle contouring makeup transformed my features just enough. Ready? Margaret adjusted her own disguise, a sleek red wig and glasses. As I'll ever be. I smoothed down my designer dress, borrowed from Fabian's sister. Remember, we're potential investors from Seattle. We entered the hotel conference room where Stefan's investment seminar was being held. The space was packed with people, mostly older couples clutching folders and notepads. My stomach churned as I imagined their life savings about to be handed over to him. There he is, Margaret whispered, nodding toward the front. Stefan looked exactly the same. Expensive suit, perfect hair, that practiced smile that had once made me feel special. He was working the room like a pro, shaking hands, laughing at jokes, touching people's arms in that familiar way that made them feel important. Ladies, he approached us, hand extended. Welcome. I don't believe we've met. Amanda Pierce, I said, using my prepared alias. My heart hammered, but my voice remained steady. This is my business partner, Rachel. Stefan Diaz, he smiled, holding my hand a moment too long. Seattle, right? I noticed you on the registration list. We're actually expanding our operations there. How fascinating, I purred, channeling every ounce of confidence I had. We're very interested in your investment structure. Well, you're in for a treat, he winked. We're offering special terms for our premium investors today. As he moved away to greet other guests, Margaret gripped my arm. You okay? Fine, but look who just walked in. My parents slipped into the back row, looking tired and drawn. Dad's suit hung loose on his frame, and Mom's hands wouldn't stop fidgeting with her purse. What are they doing here? Margaret hissed. Probably hoping to convince him to return their money, I muttered. Let's split up. You take the left side of the room, I'll take the right. Talk to people, find out how much they've invested. The next hour was enlightening and horrifying. Stefan's presentation was slick, full of impressive graphs and testimonials. But as I circulated during the break, the stories I heard made my blood boil. He guaranteed 20% returns, one elderly man told me. Said it was completely safe. We remortgaged our house, his wife added proudly. Best decision we ever made. I escaped to the bathroom, fighting nausea. Margaret followed. It's worse than we thought, she said, checking under the stalls to ensure we were alone. He's got at least 30 people ready to invest today. And guess what? Your dad's been helping him recruit people from his old workplace. What? Apparently, Stefan promised to pay them back if they brought in new investors. Classic pyramid scheme, I growled. We need to... The bathroom door opened. My mother walked in, stopping short when she saw us. I turned quickly to the mirror, adjusting my wig, but her eyes met mine in the reflection. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then understanding dawned on her face. Sasha? Margaret stepped between us. Sorry, you must be mistaken. We're from Seattle. Mom moved closer, her voice dropping. I'd know my daughter's eyes anywhere, even with those contacts. Sasha, please. Your daughter? I turned, dropping the fake accent. Funny, I thought Stefan was your only child now. She flinched. We made a mistake. We know that now. But he's promising to make things right if you just drag more innocent people into his scheme. I cut her off. How can you still believe him? We don't have a choice. The bank's foreclosing next month. Your father's had 2 anxiety attacks. Jolie's husband left her after they lost their savings. We're desperate. You have choices, I said coldly. You're just making the wrong ones. Again. I moved to leave, but she grabbed my arm. Why are you here then? In disguise? To gather evidence, to stop him from destroying more lives. I pulled away. But not to help you. Never again to help you. Back in the conference room, Stefan was starting his closing pitch. I watched my father nodding along eagerly in the back row, probably already planning which former colleagues to call. My phone buzzed, a text from Fabian. Got everything we need from his company servers? Time to pull the trigger? I looked around the room at all the hopeful faces, at Stefan's practiced smile, at my parents' desperate expressions. Then I typed back, do it. Within minutes, phones around the room started buzzing. The local news story about Stefan's investigation had just been updated with new evidence we'd spent weeks gathering, including proof that he'd known exactly what he was doing when he targeted my family. The room erupted in chaos. As Stefan tried to maintain control, I slipped out with Margaret, leaving my wig and contacts in the hotel trash. Sometimes revenge isn't about what you do to people. Sometimes it's about letting them face the consequences of their own actions. The morning after the investment seminar, I arrived at my office to find Stefan waiting in the lobby. My heart jumped, but I kept my face neutral. Nice dye job yesterday, he said, standing up. Blonde suits you. Security, I called out, but he raised his hands. 5 minutes, Sasha, that's all I'm asking. Why should I give you even 5 seconds? Because I can help your family recover their money. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. All of it, plus interest. I laughed. With what? The money you stole from other people? With legitimate investments. I've got deals in the pipeline. More lies? Fabian's voice cut through the lobby as he emerged from the elevator. I suggest you leave before I call the police. Stefan's charm didn't falter. The new business partner. I've heard great things about what you two have built here. He turned back to me. Remember when we used to talk about starting a company together? Looks like you did it without me. I did everything without you, I said, including learning who I really am. Your parents are going to lose their house, Sasha. Jolie's marriage is over. Don't you care? Before I could respond, Margaret burst through the front door, waving her phone. Have you seen the news? Oh, she stopped short, seeing Stefan. What news? Stefan and I asked simultaneously. She held up her phone, showing a breaking news alert. Local investment scheme investigation expands. Multiple arrests expected. The color drained from Stefan's face. 5 minutes are up, I said quietly. Security? As they escorted him out, he called back, This isn't over, Sasha. Your family needs you. Once he was gone, I slumped against the wall. He's right about one thing. It's not over. No, Fabian agreed. But it's getting there. The FBI contacted me this morning. They want to talk to you about being a witness. My phone buzzed, Jolie calling. I declined the call. You can't avoid them forever, Margaret said gently. Watch me. But an hour later, Jolie showed up at my office. She looked terrible. Dark circles under her eyes, clothes hanging loose on her frame. 2 minutes, I said, not offering her a seat. I left him, she blurted out. Rick, I mean. After we lost everything in Stefan's scheme, he changed. Started drinking, gambling what little we had left. I'm staying with friends. That's not my problem. No, she agreed, but I need you to know something. The day you confronted Stefan about cheating, I knew, I'd known for weeks. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? He told me not to say anything, said he was ending it, that it was just a mistake. I believed him because it was easier than facing the truth. She wiped her eyes. I chose the easy way, and I've regretted it every day since. Get out. Sasha, please. Get out! I screamed, sending my coffee mug flying across the room. It shattered against the wall, making us both jump. Fabian appeared in the doorway. Everything okay in here? My sister was just leaving, I said through clenched teeth. After she left, Fabian helped me clean up the broken mug. You know, he said carefully, sometimes the strongest revenge is showing people exactly what they lost. What do you mean? Your company's doing amazing. You're about to be instrumental in bringing down a major fraud operation. You've built a life they can only dream of now. He paused. Maybe that's enough. It's not about revenge anymore, I admitted. It's about trust. They broke something I can't fix. No, Margaret said from the doorway, but maybe you can build something new, something stronger. My phone buzzed again, a text from my mother. We're meeting with bankruptcy lawyers tomorrow. I know we don't deserve your help, but please just talk to us. We were wrong. About everything. Delete it, Margaret advised. Instead, I typed back, "You're right, you don't deserve my help, but I'll send you the contact information for a good financial advisor. What you do with it is up to you." That's more than they deserve, Fabian said. Maybe, I agreed, but it's who I am. Not who they made me, but who I chose to be. Later that evening, as we reviewed the evidence we'd be presenting to the FBI, Fabian caught me staring at an old family photo on my phone. Missing them? Missing who they were supposed to be, I corrected. But you know what? I like who I am now better than who I was then. Good, he said, squeezing my shoulder, because that person built something amazing. I deleted the family photo and pulled up our company's latest projections instead. The past could stay where it belonged, behind me. I had a future to build, and it was looking brighter every day. The FBI interview room was colder than I expected. Agent Torres sat across from me, reviewing my statement about Stefan's investment scheme. "So he approached you directly at your office?" she asked, tapping her pen against the desk. "Yes, offered to help my family recover their losses if I'd back off." She nodded. "We've found similar patterns. He tries to leverage personal relationships to keep people quiet." She slid a folder across the table. "Take a look at this." Inside were photos of Stefan meeting with various people, including my father, at upscale restaurants, golf courses, even church gatherings. "Your father was quite active in recruiting new investors," she said carefully. "I'm aware." My voice was flat. "Is he being charged?" "That depends on how much he knew. We're interviewing him tomorrow." She leaned forward. "Ms. White, we have enough to arrest Stefan. But with your testimony about his direct attempt to silence you, we could make an even stronger case." Before I could respond, there was a knock at the door. Another agent entered with fresh documents. "You need to see this," he told Torres. "Stefan just emptied his accounts, all of them." My stomach dropped. "He's running." "Not if we can help it." Torres was already on her phone, barking orders. I left the FBI office feeling drained. Margaret was waiting outside in her car. "Well?" she asked as I climbed in. "Stefan's trying to flee, and my dad might be facing charges." Her hand found mine. "I'm sorry, Sasha." "Don't be. They made their choices." I checked my phone. 3 missed calls from my mother, 2 from Jolie. "Let's get back to the office. I need to work." But when we arrived, Fabian was waiting with news of his own. "Stefan just called," he said. "He wants to meet. Says he has a proposition that could help everyone." "It's a trap," Margaret declared. "Obviously," I agreed. "But what if we could trap him instead?" Fabian raised an eyebrow. "What are you thinking?" "He doesn't know how much evidence we have. If I meet with him, wear a wire?" "Absolutely not," Margaret interrupted. "It's too dangerous." "I'll call Agent Torres," I said, already dialing. "We do this properly by the book." 2 hours later, I sat in an upscale restaurant, wearing an FBI wire and trying to look calm. Stefan walked in right on time, still wearing his signature confident smile. "You look gorgeous," he said, sliding into the seat across from me. "Success suits you." "What do you want, Stefan?" He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "I want to make a deal. I can return everyone's money, your parents, Jolie, all of them. But I need your help." "My help?" "Your company is doing well, very well. I need a legitimate business to process some investments through." I took a sip of water, buying time. "You want to use my company to launder money?" "I want to make things right," he insisted. "Your parents are about to lose everything. Jolie's living on someone's couch. I can fix it all. We can fix it together, just like we used to talk about." And if I say no? His smile tightened. Then I have some interesting stories to tell about your father's involvement in my investment strategy. Stories the FBI might find very interesting. Are you threatening me? I'm offering you a chance to save your family. He reached across the table, touching my hand. The Sasha I married would understand that family comes first. I pulled my hand away. The Sasha you married doesn't exist anymore. You and my family killed her. Don't be dramatic. No, Stefan, you don't get to do this anymore. You don't get to manipulate me, or threaten me, or use my family against me. I stood up. We're done here. Sasha, wait. FBI agents emerged from every corner of the restaurant. Agent Torres approached our table, badge out. Stefan Diaz, you're under arrest for investment fraud, attempted witness tampering, and extortion. The color drained from his face as they cuffed him. You were wearing a wire? Sasha, please, I can explain. Save it for your lawyer, Torres said, leading him away. Outside, Margaret and Fabian were waiting with the FBI surveillance team. You did it. Margaret hugged me tight. It's over. Not quite, I said, watching as they loaded Stefan into a police car. My father's interview is tomorrow. What are you going to do? Fabian asked. My phone buzzed, another text from my mother. They're interviewing your father tomorrow. Please help us. He doesn't deserve prison. I stared at the message for a long moment before replying. No, he doesn't. I'll have my lawyer contact the FBI in the morning. After everything they did, you're still helping? Margaret asked incredulously. I'm not doing it for them, I said, watching Stefan's police car drive away. I'm doing it for me, because I'm not them. I never was. The courthouse hallway was packed with Stefan's victims, all waiting to give their impact statements. I sat near the back, trying to be invisible, but whispers followed me anyway. That's his ex-wife. I heard she helped bring him down. Isn't that her family over there? My parents and Jolie sat on the opposite side of the hallway, not looking at me. Dad had aged a decade in the past few months, even though my lawyer had managed to get him immunity in exchange for testimony against Stefan. Margaret squeezed my hand. You don't have to stay for this. Yes, I do. The courtroom doors opened and we filed in. Stefan sat at the defendant's table wearing an orange jumpsuit instead of his usual designer suits. He turned, scanning the crowd until he found me. I met his gaze steadily. One by one, people approached the podium to share their stories. Retired teachers who lost their pensions, small business owners who remortgaged their shops, elderly couples who could no longer afford their medications. Then it was my father's turn. Stefan Diaz was like a son to me, he began, voice shaking. I trusted him with my family's future. I defended him when my daughter... He paused, looking at me for the first time in months. When my daughter tried to warn us, I chose him over her, and I lost everything, not just money, but something far more valuable. My mother started crying softly. I recruited others into his scheme, Dad continued. Friends, colleagues, people who trusted me. I'll never forgive myself for that, but worse than losing our savings, our home, our dignity, I lost my daughter's trust. And that's something Stefan Diaz can never repay. The judge called my name next. I walked to the podium, my heels clicking against the floor. Your Honor, I'm not here to talk about money, I said. Stefan didn't just steal funds. He stole trust. He turned families against each other. He made parents choose him over their children. He destroyed relationships that can never be repaired. Stefan shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The worst part, I continued, he's still doing it. Even after his arrest, he tried to manipulate me into helping him launder money by threatening my father. He doesn't feel remorse. He feels inconvenienced. After the other statements, the judge called a recess before sentencing. In the hallway, Jolie approached me hesitantly. That was brave, she said. It was true. I know. Listen, She twisted her hands together. I got a job offer. In Seattle, actually. A fresh start. Good for you. Mom and Dad are moving in with Aunt Sarah, she continued. They can't afford anything else right now. That's not my problem. No, but... She took a deep breath. Thank you for helping Dad avoid charges. You didn't have to do that. You're right, I didn't. The bailiff called us back in. The judge looked stern as she began her statement. Mr. Diaz, you have perpetrated not just financial fraud, but emotional terrorism against these families. Your actions were calculated, manipulative, and showed a complete disregard for human dignity. Stefan stood, straightening his jumpsuit. I sentence you to 15 years in federal prison, with no possibility of parole for 10 years. You are ordered to pay restitution to all victims, and you are barred from any financial industry work for life. As they led Stefan away, he called out, Sasha, please, just listen. Bailiff, the judge warned, and he fell silent. Outside the courthouse, reporters clustered around the victims. My mother broke away from their group and approached me. We're selling everything, she said quietly. The house, my jewelry, everything, to try to pay people back. Smart. Sasha, please, can we just talk? Over coffee, maybe? I looked at her tired face, at the designer purse she still carried, probably worth enough to pay someone's restitution. No, I said. You don't need coffee. You need therapy. You need to understand why you chose him over me. You need to figure out why material things matter more to you than your own daughter. Until then, we have nothing to discuss. But we're family. Family? I laughed bitterly. Family trusts each other. Family protects each other. Family apologizes when they're wrong. You've done none of those things. Fabian appeared at my side. The car's ready. Goodbye, Mom, I said, turning away. Good luck with the move. As we drove away, I watched my family growing smaller in the rearview mirror. My mother still standing where I'd left her, my father comforting a crying Jolie, all of them looking lost. Are you okay? Margaret asked from the front seat. No, I admitted, but I will be. Sometimes the hardest part of moving forward is leaving people behind. Even family? Especially family. I turned away from the window. Now, about that expansion plan we discussed. The autumn wind whipped around me as I stood outside Aunt Sarah's small house, my finger hovering over the doorbell. Margaret waited in the car, giving me space for this moment. I'd received the letter last week, handwritten, from my father. Not asking for money or help, just 3 simple words. I understand now. The door opened before I could ring. Mom stood there, looking different. No designer clothes, no perfectly styled hair. She wore jeans and a simple sweater, her gray roots showing. Sasha, she breathed, you came. I got Dad's letter. She stepped back, letting me enter. The house was small but tidy, family photos on the walls. I noticed all the ones of Stefan had been removed. Dad sat at the kitchen table, a therapy workbook open in front of him. He stood when he saw me, uncertain. You look well, he said softly. Business is good. We know, Mom said. We've been following your company's success online, that contract with the national retail chain. I didn't come to discuss business. Dad nodded. We've been in therapy, both of us, learning about narcissistic manipulation, about why we were such easy targets for Stefan. And we discovered something ugly about ourselves, Mom said, sitting down. We cared more about appearances than reality, more about status than truth, more about money than, she choked up, than our own daughter's happiness. We failed you, Dad added. Not just with Stefan, but long before that, always pushing you to be what we wanted, never seeing who you really were. I remained standing, arms crossed. Why tell me this now? Because we finally understand what we lost, Mom said. Not the house or the money or the social status. We lost you, and that's the one thing we can never replace. We're not asking for forgiveness, Dad continued. We don't deserve it. We just wanted you to know that we see it now. All of it. How strong you were, how right you were, how incredibly capable you've always been. My throat tightened. I needed you to see that years ago. We know, Mom whispered. We know. A small meow interrupted us. A scruffy orange cat wound around my legs. That's hope, Dad said with a slight smile. From the shelter where I volunteer now. Helping animals it's helping me be better. And I'm teaching art at the community center, Mom added. No pay, just giving back. I sat down finally, letting out a long breath. Jolie told me you've been making restitution payments to Stefan's victims. Every penny we can spare, Dad confirmed. It'll take years, but it's the right thing to do, Mom finished. We sat in silence for a moment, the cat purring between us. I'm getting married, I said suddenly, to Fabian in the spring. Mom's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't move to hug me or make demands. Instead, she asked quietly, "Are you happy?" The simple question, the one they'd never asked before, broke something inside me. "Yes," I said. "I am." Dad nodded, wiping his eyes. "That's all we should have ever wanted for you." I stood up. "I need to go, but..." I pulled out a business card, writing on the back. "This is my personal number. Not for emergencies, not for help, just if you want to talk, sometimes." They both nodded, understanding the gift and its limitations. Outside, Margaret rolled down the window. "You okay?" I looked back at the house where my parents stood in the doorway, not reaching for me, not demanding anything, just watching with hope and regret mingled on their faces. "They're different," I said. "People can change," she replied, "if they want to badly enough." "Maybe." I got in the car. "But trust has to be earned." "And love?" I thought about Fabian waiting at home, about the family Margaret and I had built at our company, about the strength I'd found in myself. "Love was never the problem," I said finally. "Love was always there, but love without respect, without trust, without understanding, it's not enough." As we drove away, I typed out a text. "Thank you for understanding, finally." The response came quickly. "Thank you for showing us how. We're proud of who you've become, even if we had nothing to do with it." I smiled slightly, putting my phone away. Sometimes the happy ending isn't about forgiveness or reconciliation. Sometimes it's about understanding your own worth, setting your own boundaries, and finding peace with the space between what was and what is. "Let's go home," I told Margaret. "We have a wedding to plan." And for the first time in years, the word home felt completely right.